Well, it's interesting that you should talk about the lack of support for the strikes, because that's one of the things that I want to talk about today, especially with you on the panel. So I've been reading a lot of interesting articles about the current state of the Hollywood strikes. And basically, it runs the gamut. So like there was this one article that talks about how the public overwhelmingly supports the strikes. But then like you read the article and it says like, of the 1,000 people surveyed, 47% support the strikes or something like that. And then you have these articles about like how actors from the SAG unions are like having to work at Target in order to like pay rent and stuff like that, and how everyone is just like wanting the strike to be over. Then you see the articles that talk about how the studio's strategy is basically just to wait until these people are desperate enough to agree to anything. Because like they're like, hey, we got lots of money. We can sit on this for as long as we need to until like you guys, kind of fold. And there had been some kind of hopeful signs for like meetings recently, but then like all that stuff kind of went by the wayside, and it seems like it's just being dragged on. What's your take on, number one, when you think the strikes are probably going to be resolved, and number two, why the public just seems so apathetic towards this?
I'll start with the public first, because they don't see any difference. Besides the late night shows going dark, and isn't that a blessing? There's not really much change. I mean, movies are coming in theaters. There's still new content coming to streaming platforms. So you don't really feel the pinch yet on a consumer level. So there's that. And also, the sad thing is that most of the actors are not George Clooney and not Meryl Streep, and they're workaday people just trying to make a living. And the people who make the billions, they get all the headlines. So I certainly have sympathy for people who are in a system where they're trying to squeeze you, but them's the breaks, and this is the industry you picked. And, it's hard to feel badly for the studio heads, because they've got, oodles of money, and they don't seem to like half the country. So there's a lot of reasons for a lot of disdain going on here. As far as when it's going to wrap up, gosh, I don't know. They don't seem to meet a lot. I feel like the Writers Guild and the studios have been meeting more recently, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. And I guess the other wrinkle here is that they're saying that not having the actors available to promote the product is hurting the box office. But I don't even know if that's the case. Because, I mean, you see a lot of big name star movies and they flop dramatically. They're out there pressing the flesh and talking to everybody. So I don't know. It's a lot of change.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I was saying in some cases, these movies are probably doing better.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Without these actors not out there running their mouths in front of these reporters,
I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think half the times the actors do a disservice to the movies they're trying to promote. The bottom line is like when Tom Hanks goes on a couch on late night TV, he's not bored. He can hang out with Rita Wilson. He's fine. He's promoting his movie, and there's so many stars who do it badly. Either they insult the audience, they get hyper political, they pull a Rachel Zegler where they make fun of the source material, a la Snow White. So. Maybe when the strike ends, they could figure out why they're promoting their films and do it better. I think that'd be nice.
Rachel Zegler, the new Brie Larson.
Brie Larson 2.0.
Yeah,
Brie Larson's
she's actually worse.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel Zegler has personally given enough content to the YouTube community
for years to come.
Yeah. Like they're going to buy some cars off of her, I think. Nadia, what do you think is the reason why the public just in general doesn't seem to care about these strikes?
Because for the longest, these writers and actors have been against the public. They have made fun of or attacked fans multiple times. They don't respect the IP source that they're given. Whole lot of things. Like, I don't want anybody to lose their house, their livelihood, but at the same time, what do you expect when you've constantly been punching at fans for the last couple of years?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with just the fact that a lot of the stuff coming out of Hollywood has been very crappy.
Bad.
Yeah, they don't respect what they're working on.
Yeah, and I think the general public sees these people who make substandard fare demanding more money.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, screw you guys.
When I see the writers for things like She-Hulk, or most of this Disney Plus stuff,
or even The Witcher too lately,
or The Witcher, any of these people that they're screaming about deserving and wanting more money, I'm like, no. I know I can't relate. I don't know how the industry works, but you're not making a good case for yourself when this is the kind of stuff you're putting out and you want more money. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm down here making so much an hour and it's way less than what you make. I'm living. Go pound rocks. Get a real job, I guess. I don't know what else to say because this stuff that has been coming out, with a few exceptions, is just, it's not good. It's not good. It's not entertaining. It's infused with modern politics and woke nonsense and crap. And I just can't watch most of it. So,
well, do you think for the while, they've looked at it as just another paycheck instead of actually putting heart and soul into the art that they are creating? Mm-hmm. For them, it's just like, oh, I'm a writer for She-Hulk, so it's going to be a bigger payoff. Let me just get by instead of actually putting the heart and soul into all of this media that they've contribute to.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm coming from, and I'd like Christian to chime in on this. Like, unlike most professions, like when it comes to the Writers Guild, for instance, most people who are writers in Hollywood never studied their craft, right? They didn't go to writer's school. They didn't get a degree in English or creative writing or anything like that. Most of them haven't even taken a seminar in writing. They just know how to like type on a keyboard and deliver words in the form of sentences. And basically everyone in Hollywood says like, I'm a writer because they're working on a screenplay or something like that. So when it comes to getting hired as a writer on TV show, movie, whatever, a lot of it either has to do with how good your agent is or who you know. And I think most of the writers in TV writers' rooms are people who got there not based off of merit, but based off of like their connections. And when it comes time for them to actually deliver, 98% of them are really bad at their jobs. And yet they want to be paid for being good at their jobs. I think that's the biggest issue that I personally run into when I want to support, these strikes, which is I look at the writers who are striking and I'm like, yes, they all make good points, but they're not really deserving of what they're asking for. I think most of the movie going and TV watching public probably agrees with that sentiment. What do you think, Christian?
I mean, there's a lot of junk out there, but there's also a lot of platforms and channels, so it's spread out a bit. But I think that the folks who are legitimately talented, like the Taylor Sheridans, they're pretty rare these days. I think most of them are She-Hulk writers, and any chance I get to poke fun at that show, I will just grab it because I found that just punishing. And
anything Star Trek right now?
I haven't been catching up with Star Trek, but just I think what you're touching on before is this contempt for the audience is so fascinating to me because it just seems really it doesn't make sense. It's like if you go to a restaurant and the server's mean to you, well, the server's going to get a lousy tip. So there is a bit of a disconnect there because if you're mean to your audience and the audience doesn't show up, then you make less money and you get less projects. It's a very strange thing. What I'm really hoping for when the strikes shake out is I want more transparency. I want to find out what the numbers are, the real numbers on these streaming channels, what's actually getting eyeballs, what's not. And also the sense that, hey, the Biden economy is terrible. You got to be nicer to us. You've got to be more respectful. You have to have more gratitude. I really praised Tom Cruise in recent months, even though I don't know what his personal life is. It could be a train wreck. I have no idea. But you know what? When he comes out in public, he says, thank you to the fans, and he appreciates what they mean to him and how they've given him this wonderful career. And he's working his butt off to deliver on movies like Mission Impossible 28. And, I like that. I don't even care he's full of it. I like it, And I think that more actors should have that sense of gratitude and charm and presence about them. And I hope for a little bit of that to come back.
So, but he has a connection. He knows how to connect with the people who watch his movies. The problem with a lot of these people that are out there is they don't have any connection with the people in the real world.
They haven't been in the real world for a long time.
They live in their insulated little bubbles and think that their opinion is the only one that matters. When in reality, they're a very, very small, tiny minority of people. They just have a loud platform, and they're learning. I think finally, it's the old go woke, go broke thing a little bit. That's kind of what I feel like these writers and these people on these picket lines are feeling right now, because there is not a lot of public sentiment towards these people, and you would think there would be, because big corporate overlords are picking on the little man. But I don't give a shit about either side of this strike.
Hmm.
I really don't. I don't have any sympathy for the corporate overlords, and I don't have any compassion for these people that are on the picket line. I've never been a union guy, but sometimes I feel like maybe the people on the picket lines have some legitimate gripes, and they probably do. I wouldn't want to be replaced by a AI if I was a writer. I get that. I understand that. I understand these gripes, but they need to. I feel to me, whether they end up getting what they want in the end is fine. But personally, I kind of want to see them have to eat a little bit of ramen like the rest of us before they
college
do.
All over again.
Does that make sense? It's like
Say it like it's a bad thing.
Well, the thing is, majority of us are eating ramen.
We are.
Majority of us.
It costs $60 for me and my wife to go to freaking Mexican food. It's insane.
That's the thing. Like most of us are struggling right now with the economy of putting food on our own tables.
Yeah.
I think that's another reason why there's not a lot of people have been caring about this strike is because, well, I have to worry about feeding my family first. It's kind of all man for himself kind of deal going on right now because of the economy.
I'm having such a hard time now making my mortgage payment on my 6-bedroom, 8-bath house with the pool in the backyard. It's like, oh, come on.
I'm going to have to fire my cleaning service.
But also too, like choosing what movies you're going to go see in the theaters. That's a big debate too. Like 9 out of 10 times my husband and I are like, okay, should we stream it or should we actually go to the theaters and enjoy it in theaters? Like, and most of the time it's, okay, I want to stream it at the comfort. I already have the subscription. I'll just wait for the comfort of my own home.
Well, you guys mentioned Tom Cruise. And I think one of the interesting things about him is that he actually understands who his audience is.
Yes.
Right? Like he understands that from a business perspective, if you don't have the audience, you don't have the money. Right?
Yeah.
And there's been this trend in Hollywood, probably since 2016, where you have creatives and studios actively attack the audience for failing to connect with their message. Like Paul Feige or Feige.
Yeah.
Famously for Ghostbusters 2016 came out and attacked the audience for not liking his take on Ghostbusters.
Is that the woman?
Yeah.
Yeah, that all female Ghostbusters. And so like you have this recurring pattern of Hollywood attacking the fans. And then you have a contrast to that where you have Tom Cruise saying like, hey, the fans, like we're here because of the fans. So like it's it's a big thing. Christian, before we get to your take on that, Vader almost had a heart attack over here. So we want
Do
to.
I get my iPad now?
I'm going to bring it up. What the dude?
Wow, William Forbes for $500.
Wow.
Nice.
He has dethroned Scotty Dub as one of our top super chatters.
Alex is going to be so happy.
So William Forbes for $500. Can't stay long, Salty Group. Y'all are always live when I'm at work. I'm currently hiding in the restroom at work with no volume, so I can send this y'all's way. Recently found y'all a couple months ago. Love the channel, content, the humor, the people, but Vader's my fave.
Yeah.
Always is.
Keep up the good work, and I'll catch the unlive version when I get home.
That's
wow.
awesome.
William, thank you, sir.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. And we're going to have a special graphic made up for you.
Yes,
you are our top Tuesday.
He's our top overall by a penny.
Yeah. He beat out Scotty Dub.
$499.99.
Yeah. Scotty Dub. It's a good thing this wasn't on Saturday. Otherwise, Scotty'd be.
William, thank you for that. I'm going to be holding it over everybody's head for a little while.
Because as well you should.
I was here when it happened.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm his favorite.
Yes.
That is awesome.
And he had to sneak away to slip us that 500.
Hopefully it was a real 500. Hopefully he didn't miss it.
Don't jinx it.
He actually
he was like, I'm going to send you 50. Can you give that back?
He actually wrote, I was the best guest ever, but he ran out of space. So he just
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Writer strike.
Yes.
Can I share one quick story? This has been circulating the last day or so. Actor Dax Shepard, who's been in everything, including Idiocracy, Parenthood, the TV show. He was on this interview on a podcast talking about financial insecurity. And he said, when he was growing up, family didn't have a lot of money, and we can all relate to that, making decisions and that sort of that feeling of stress in the family. And he said he's been thinking a lot about that now with the strike. And he indicated he understands it's not real. But then you have to think, he's Dax Shepard. He's married to Kristen Bell. between the two of them, I can't even imagine. I thought one article said they have 40 million together. Because they must have that, because they've been working aggressively in major projects, including Frozen, for decades now. And I just thought the fact that he could even broach that subject in public is just wildly embarrassing and just showing a massive disconnect. And even if you said, gosh, you know, when I was a kid, I was struggling for money and I'm worried about the strike. I know it doesn't make sense. I would just shut up. I'm sorry. How could you even utter that?
Yeah.
In that same vein, I understand, because I feel like these people are kind of disconnected, and I understand it costs a lot of money to live in California. You know, move to Nevada if you have to.
No, send them to Utah,
don't
not
go to Utah.
Nevada.
But you know, it's like who's the actress that played She-Hulk? Just for an example,
Tatiana
Maslany. It came out when she said some nonsense a month or so ago, a while back, and you go and you Google her net worth and everything, you find out that she's worth like $3 million, and she made 50 grand or something like that per episode of She-Hulk. I was like, I make barely a little over 50 grand in a year.
Yeah, most people don't even hit 50 grand a year.
You know, you just made what, $300,000 for whatever, however many weeks worth it took you to make that show, and I'm sorry, but I don't feel sympathy for that. You know what I mean? I just don't.
But getting back to Christian's point, like Dax Shepard, if you ever talked about like an untalented person who doesn't deserve his wealth, like Dax Shepard is one of the least funny comedians. Like his movies have always been terrible. I haven't listened to his podcast for some reason. It seems to be popular, but like he just seems like the very epitome of why people aren't supporting the strike, which is basically you don't have the talent to back up the money you're making. Am I wrong on this, Christian?
I mean, he's okay. To me, he's interchangeable. You don't lose a project because his name is no longer attached.
But like if you look at his wife, like Kristen Bell, like she's legitimately talented.
I think she's underrated. She's a brilliant comic actress, and if she can sing, I mean, I there's some disparages there in the talent side of that relationship. But yeah, it's just to say that out loud. And again, a lot of the actors, a lot of the writers are working paycheck to paycheck like the rest of us. I get that, and I feel for them. And it's the big names that get a lot of attention, but they have brought this on themselves. And I whether this is kind of a come to Jesus moment for them, where they realize that they've been behaving badly, I don't know. But we're heading into an election year, so I think any attempt for them to be kinder and gentler is going to disappear in a few months. So
Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard, I recently saw a video of them at an airport where they got laid over, where they had to stay at the airport all night. So instead of getting a hotel, they like camped out at the airport, actually built the camp area in the corner of the airport. I was like, this is so strange for actors to do this, where I know you could probably go get a hotel for the night. So odd to me.
I feel like them as a couple have always been kind of like more normal than most Hollywood couples.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really reflect on Dax Shepard's talent as an actor or comedian.
I'm having a hard time. I'm going to have to IMDb it.
You don't know? Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I know the name. I'm just... Yeah.
You didn't see Chips? Come on, man.
Yeah.
He's the guy that played John Baker in the new Chips movie, right? Yeah, no, I don't like that guy.
I haven't seen anything for him in a long time.
But I want to get back to this idea that Hollywood has actively been attacking their customers for like years now. Almost a decade. It all started, in 2016, and it's only gotten worse over time. And they don't seem to learn the lesson that like, hey, if you insult your customers are going to stop being your customers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, we see this time and time again, especially with Star Wars. Yeah. Star Wars has been terrible about attacking it. Like if you don't like what they're doing, you're instantly some type of racist or homophobe or like
sexist.
Sexist, misogynist, like all the ists out there.
And they're getting out ahead of it too. They're making up things ahead of before even any of these shows or movies land. They're making things up ahead of time.
Oh yeah, like the chick who played Reva on Star Wars. It's like she.
Fans are racist, but the show hadn't come out yet. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but Christian, like you've seen, like you kind of work in the Hollywood journalism sphere, and it's very obvious that a lot of these publications are like in the tank for these studios beforehand, and they have
yeah.
like all this stuff planned out. Can you give us a little bit of like peeking behind the curtain in terms of like how that works exactly?
Well, I think a lot of the major publications like Variety and the Hollywood Reporter, they really want to have good relationships with the studios and the actors so they can get more and more exclusives, get interviews, things like that. I think a lot of stuff may pass me by in part because of where I lean politically. So that's part of it as well. They don't want to rock the boat, but they also have they have an agenda. If an actor says, I hate Trump 20 times, then they're going to report on it 20 times, even though it's no longer news. I remember when Robert De Niro was attacking Trump at every other opportunity. Listen, he's a big star. He's a great actor. I get it. But the 20th time he says, I hate Donald Trump, I don't think that's really news. So, I mean, the fact that they keep covering it is sort of the tell there. So that's part of the problem. I don't think they want to rock the boat. I don't think they want to do investigative pieces that may may make the actors look badly. And they pick favorites. I mean, if you're Amy Schumer, you're the darling, you're the diva, you're the empowered, important actress that we're going to cover positively. But if you're Jim Caviezel, then you're QAnon adjacent, whether it's true, whether it's false, whether it's kind of true, whether it's kind of false. That's the narratives are so obvious that it's impossible to deny. And then also what I see so often, and I cover this a lot because it gets me angry, is that they just ignore stories that they don't want to cover. So initially, Oliver Anthony, the singer, they ignored it. It was a sensation that everyone knew about, except if you read Variety, you didn't. So you had to wait a few days, and they had to figure out, well, how are we going to attack this guy? He seems pretty nice. He's an overnight sensation. He's not rich. His song isn't really political. It's more populist. What are we going to do? We'll frame it as, well, the conservative influencers are pushing the songs.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we're going to frame it.
Yeah.
Not, oh my gosh, this is a crazy story. This guy went from being a nobody to being the top of the charts. That's a great story, period.
Yeah.
You don't need identity politics or anything else on top of it.
In fact, on Saturday, we covered a Variety article talking about, how studios have been fielding a lot of box office bombs lately with Indiana Jones 5 and even Mission Impossible 7 underperformed.
Mm-hmm.
But they started listing movies that actually like did well. And they said Barbie, Oppenheimer, and like one other film, I forget what. But what was interesting was how they left out Sound of Freedom, which in terms of like gross to budget ratio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it was a $14 million budget and it's grossed hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's the most profitable movie of the year. And yet Variety decided to leave it out.
Yeah.
That's a great example. And I didn't realize that. That's embarrassing, honestly. If you're going to pick the summer of 23 and you're going to say, what are the big hits, and you don't mention that movie, that's embarrassing.
That's kind of the rock star of the whole summer season, right?
Yeah. Listen, Barbie is the rock star, but
maybe
Rockstar
Variety
Part
is its
2
own QAnon.
I mean,
conspiracy.
it's the Cinderella story, though, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at a movie like, for instance, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, right?
Yes.
Like that was another Sound of Freedom situation where it had a very small budget and it made hundreds of millions of dollars. And I remember when that hit, you couldn't turn on the TV or look at an industry trade without like that being like one of the lead stories. Compare that to now with Sound of Freedom, it's like, oh no, we don't want to cover this for some reason, even though it's the message to it is like, hey, just protect children, right?
It boggles my mind that this should be a movie that unites. Doesn't matter how you vote. It should be a movie that unites everyone in the cause, bringing awareness to it. We should protect children at all cost. And I don't know why someone would be totally against this movie. It makes no sense.
That's how tribal the thinking is at newspapers and magazines and websites. It's so tribal, they will pick a movie like that as the enemy, even though it's about exposing child trafficking and raising awareness. That's how ingrained they are in what they hate and what they like and what they want to do. What could be a more damning example than that? And by the way, another crazy story about Sound of Freedom, I don't know if you covered this in the show. It was crowdfunded, I think, to help promote it. I think they raised a whole bunch of money to help push it out to the masses. So they got over 6,000 people were involved in that crowdfunding, which is part of what Angel Studios does. They're the company behind the movie now. One of the 6,000 people was arrested on some sort of child-related charges. It's kind of murky. I don't think it was a big deal, but it was a little wonky at first blush. Big story. Sound of Freedom producer.
Oh, I remember this. Yep.
1 out of 6,000 people who crowdfunded the movie got in trouble, and that was a news cycle.
Well, the headlines for that were first of all, he became a film financier in the headlines. And
hey, Mr. DeMille.
What?
Yeah, they made it sound like this was the guy who financed the entire budget of Sound of Freedom, and like his whole thing, it wasn't like I don't remember exactly what it was he was charged with, but they made it sound worse than it actually was.
Yes.
And you know, I think because Jim Caviezel is a very outspoken Christian.
Yeah.
And Angel Studios has like kind of like a Christian background to it.
Yeah.
The mainstream media instantly targeted them as bad. And so like they've gone out of their way to try to either ignore them or smear them in some way. And the whole like QAnon thing, like basically I think Jim Caviezel attended some type of event that was like sponsored by like a QAnon organization or something like that.
Do they know half the people that finance the main Hollywood movies in mainstream are not all good people? Like, I'm sure they have skeletons that in their closet that are way worse than this.
Probably, but
or at least equal.
I want to get back to some of the strike stuff. You know, we talked about Rachel Zegler a little bit ago, Brie Larson 2.0, and she opened her mouth yet again on the picket lines where she said, you know, if I'm on set in a Disney princess dress for 8 hours, I should get paid for every hour of that being streamed. And it just came off as like, wow, talk about entitlement.
Like streamed like somebody reporting on it?
No.
Or...
If they're watching Snow White and the 7 Diversity Hires on Disney Plus,
and every
hour that movie gets streamed, she should be paid for it. And I'm like, she doesn't seem to know how economies work.
If Disney was smart, they would replace her. They would replace her.
They're not smart though.
I know.
Pull a Kevin. They should replace her with Kevin Spacey in a wig.
Or just scratch the movie entirely. Scratch it. This movie is just not going to make them money. Yeah. It's not. Look at how bad the press is now for it. This movie, they should just cut their losses.
Is it made? Is it done?
Are they done? I don't even think they're done yet.
I think that they're at the pickup stage. I think that they might have finished filming principal. But who knows?
I think it's scheduled for March 2024, but that could change for multiple reasons.
Yeah, I know that the images that came out of the 7 magical creatures,
the 7 baristas.
Yeah, that was a like reshoot scenario. I believe.
Didn't they try to blame it that they were stand-ins or?
Well, they said they were fake at first,
but then they came out like, no.
Yeah, and then it was like a Georgia court trial where they basically said like, oh wait, our bad, those were real. It's very odd to me, but you have another situation here where Rachel Zegler basically opens her mouth and just comes off as completely tone deaf, and in a way I feel like it works against the cause that they're striking for, because like it just zaps sympathy from what it is they're doing. Nobody
wants to go see this, regardless if she's Hispanic or whatever, being the first Snow White and stuff. Nobody will want to see this because she's constantly opening her mouth instead of letting the art speak for itself. Similar to with the Super Mario Brothers, when everybody was complaining about Chris Pratt voicing Mario, and he literally came out and was just like, watch it for yourself.
But she's not even the worst of it. Like, no. Chris, did you see like any of the video of Colin Farrell basically claiming that you got to, go full socialist or communist on these things, where he was talking about controlling the means of production and stuff like that? Then you have Bryan Cranston up there leading like a youth Hler rally type thing with his speech. It's all very bizarre, and none of this stuff is getting any attention.
Do you think because it'll draw bad attention to it will further push people away from giving them sympathy?
Well, I think a lot of the push behind these strikes is based in like socialist values and beliefs that a lot of these like very powerful people in Hollywood kind of hold. Mm-hmm. Christian, you want to fact check me on that?
Well, I want to just share a quick anecdote. I wanted to mention this before. Jennifer Lawrence is a very good actress, and she got famous very early, won an Oscar very early. And if you remember her early interviews, she was delightful. She was the girl next door. She was sweet. She was kind. Within like 10 years, she is transformed into a smug, far left actress who's mean to people, and I want to throw a drink in Donald Trump's face, and belittling people in her native Kentucky turf for being Republicans. In her new movie, No Hard Feelings, her character is constantly railing against the rich. Well, meanwhile, behind the scenes, she was angling, I don't know if she got it, to make $25 million while shooting No Hard Feelings. Now, do you think that the gaffers got that, or the co-stars got that, or anyone else got that? Doesn't seem a little greedy to kind of push for that kind of money. It's so exhausting to hear the hypocrisy coming out of Hollywood. You know, at the end of the day, if you're an actress of her skill and you've won the lottery, genetic lottery and the talent lottery, I don't care how much you make. But when you kind of try to push an agenda in your films, but then off screen you're fighting for every last nickel, it just seems lame. And I think a lot of that feeds into this exhaustion we have with celebrity.
Why haven't we heard from people in production positions like grafters and lighting and sound? Why is it just focused solely on writers and actors for this? I mean, those individuals,
they already have a deal, don't they?
Well, those individuals,
they're not working now, though, right?
Yeah, they're not working, but I would rather support those individuals. Those tend to be people who that's their livelihood. They work paycheck to paycheck. They don't get millions of dollars or recognition for these projects.
That's a great point. You know, they're ignored during the normal times and they're ignored now. So, I mean, they'd actually would put a better face on the struggle than the Bryan Cranstons of the world. And by the way, what about if you're in New Mexico and you have a lot of different TV and movie productions going on? The restaurants nearby, the hotels, all the people who feed off of those productions and make a living based on the traffic and the commerce going on. We don't hear about them either.
I will say, though, that the Teamsters Union already has all their deals sewn up. So that might be another thing to kind of take into account.
Hey guys, if you like this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and comment below on your favorite video as well. That goes a long way with helping us boost our channel and get out there in front of more people. And it lets YouTube know that we're doing something right. And if you want to catch us live, we go live 2 times a week, once on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time and on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So join us there in the chat. We will see you on the live stream. Stay salty.